Just drank a whole cup of coffee, so let's do this thing.
Yes.
Why don't you hand me that helmet, Mrs. Angela? All right.
Mrs.
Actually-
Angelelli.
Preston Scott, why don't you begin and reach into the Voltron helmet that Justine wore in the hit video Power Rangers versus Voltron?
Oh, yes.
Would you like me to read said question?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So today, from a anonymous user on YouTube, JATIDEPO 1375. So I guess it's not anonymous.
You give away his identity. No.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Where would you stand on the Sokovia Accords and or the Mutant Registration Act? So
Where would we stand on the Sokovia Accords and or the Mutant Registration Act? Okay, wow, that's a deep question.
Interesting.
So if you guys aren't familiar, the Sokovia Accords and Superhero Registration Act are... Sokovia Accords was the movie parallel to the Superhero Registration Act, which was basically the sole inciting incident in the Civil War series in the comic books, and then obviously Sokovia Accords was the parallel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I guess that would ask the question if we're Team Iron Man or Team Cap on this, because where would we stand? Who would we stand with? So, all right, that's
immediately what I thought of. Team Cap or Team Iron Man.
Team Cap or Team Iron Man. So, superheroes are running rampant. They're saving people's lives, but they're also causing a ton of collateral damage at the same time and destroying a bunch of stuff while saving people. So, the Sokovia Accords specifically were saying that the heroes worked for the government, essentially, or the UN. And then the Registration Act was you register your identity and your powers and all that stuff with the government so you can be held accountable if there's collateral damage. So where do you guys stand on that?
It's tough because I feel like there's the fan in me that has my opinion based off of the fictional universe, and then there's the opinion of me as just a normal human being living in the real world and what I would want to see in an actual real life scenario. And it's I feel theoretically, fictionally, comic bookly, I would definitely side with Team Cap. I think there should, heroes should have the freedom to be able to, do what they need to do, save people when it's needed, and shouldn't necessarily be punished for things that might go awry. Because when I think of things that they might need to be held accountable for, that is obviously collateral damage, cities getting destroyed all the time, buildings falling down, potentially innocent lives being lost. But I think that it sort of reminds me of the Good Samaritan Act, where you obviously are doing something out of the goodness of your heart with good intention. And when you're a superhero, you have abilities that most other people don't have. So in that light, I want to say, yes, I would side with Team Cap. And then there's that part of me that gets a little realistic, though, where I think, okay, what if this was a real life thing and there were individuals with superpowers that we didn't know existed, or that could not be held. If I were to go, to the strip to go hang out with some friends, and all of a sudden the stratosphere fell down, we're supposed to just be
because of a supervillain attack.
Yeah, I guess no one's gotta pay for that. I guess we all just gotta pay for that with our taxes now.
Yeah, not super chill.
That's the part where I'm okay, in theory, but in practice it's a little different.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until you see your city get destroyed in a giant fight with a blue beam going into the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, though, just because picturing myself as just a random 20-year-old in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all I really know is that Tony Stark is kind of a cool dude that has a flying robot suit that is Iron Man, and that's sick. And one time, him and his friends and that green thing that tore down Manhattan or wherever, helped fight aliens. Also, aliens exist. What? I mean, I think thinking about it from the sense of this is the real world or I'm in their world just as me, a guy.
Yeah.
I don't care. Do what you want. You can throw a car at an alien. I don't know. I think I would just be Because this is also assuming I don't know that Tony Stark created Ultron. I don't know that it's Tony Stark's fault that most of the bad things happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that he's kind of like not a good guy. But we'll talk about that later.
He's questionable. He's been questionable. at times.
He's got a few decision-making things. That are like,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think just as like an American citizen, not really an activist in anything, I'd just be like, I mean, if they're getting the job done, you got to do what you got to do. If you want to put politics on it, that's above my paid grade.
Sure.
That's what
fair.
someone like Nick Fury, who I don't know exists because I'm just a guy, should be doing.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough because in a circumstance where like you have an Ultron situation attacking your city and the UN has to approve the Avengers going in, that sort of causes a bit of a conflict because it's like the amount of time it takes for the UN to say, yes, no, go in and stop the villain. It might already be too late. People might be dying. But at the same time, these are vigilantes and they kind of need to be held accountable for their actions. And so I've always had a hard time, and I've always gone back and forth. Even though, like, I think Iron Man in the Civil War comic was most definitely the villain of the series. I definitely saw...
He was awful.
Yeah.
I will never forgive him for what he did.
Yeah,
in the
I read him
comics.
as an antagonist when I was reading that, for sure. But... because, he did some shady stuff.
Yeah, super shady.
He did some shady
He's just
stuff.
like, even if you like kind of agree with his opinions, like he made some questionable decisions.
I can never forgive him for the clone of Thor. I can never ever forgive him for that. That was like... I was like, at that point, like, Tony, no.
I mean,
what is wrong with you?
He got wrecked by everyone. That was like one
especially
of the
real Thor. The real Thor came and beat his butt after that.
I mean, Black Panther whooped him pretty nasty too. And Namor, gosh, he got his ass kicked in that Civil War arc. Captain America beat him up. There was a lot of Iron Man butt kicking going on.
Rightfully so.
For the
Yeah.
best.
But that being said, I feel like they both have really, I don't know, solid perspectives they're coming from. It sucks that it's so black and white. It's so black and white. Like, if they were able to operate underneath the government but still were able to make their own decisions, and like if they chose to act in a situation, maybe they just had to justify their actions afterward. But even then, it's like...
But then they could go to jail if they can't justify it properly.
Yeah, if you're not a good enough speaker, you might be screwed.
Yeah,
Like,
because...
in that... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Captain America's not a lawyer, so he doesn't
Yeah.
know what to say.
He's just a
Yeah.
man talking about justice.
Like, it's tough because, like, I like some aspects of these acts, but then I don't like others. Like, I think that the thing I would really like is just that, like, if certain damages were to occur after a battle or after some sort of altercation between a hero and whoever this antagonist is causing problems, it would be nice if someone was held accountable for the aftermath of those situations or whatever. But I don't necessarily think that, like, before they do anything that they should have to go through all of these checks and balances. Like, I agree with some aspects of this, but then there's other parts where I'm like, no, that kind of defeats the purpose.
Registering your name, like I'm going to the comic book route, the registration. Registering your name, your powers, your secret identity, that's suicide.
Yeah.
Now the bad guys, if they get access to that information, they know
know
exactly
you.
what your weaknesses are. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But Spider-Man was a perfect example.
The Peter
Yes.
Parker thing's the
Yeah.
perfect example of why
Yes.
not to do that.
So the system in general, I think, is not a bad concept. It's just the way it is. The way it is there is, I mean, they don't have secret identities in the MCU. That's just not a thing.
They need to work out the fine details for sure. Like as it's advertised in the movie and in the comics, I'm like, like there needs to be a lot of meetings and revisions made to this act before it's done. But like the general idea of these super powered beings being held accountable for their actions, I don't think is unreasonable.
Sure.
Granted, how much more destruction they're capable of than the average human.
Yeah.
So that would be my only stance on it.
What do you think, Jer?
I absolutely think that there should be a system of checks and balances and superheroes being accountable for what happens. But I don't think, like, I think there should be a Sokovia Accords or anything in that form going through a few different revisions first. I think that registering superheroes is definitely not a good thing because that defeats the purpose of having that identity in the first place.
Yeah.
Um,
And the villains don't have to register. The
Yeah.
bad guys aren't registering,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and they're the ones causing the majority
Exactly.
of the damage.
I imagine in an ideal situation, or like this is just off the top of my head, obviously, like this is why with lawmakers it takes many, many, many revisions and different like heads put together to kind of figure out something that works for everyone. But like off the top of my head, maybe superheroes or anything in a superhero scenario would classify under the agency of whatever, like Shield. Like like the agency is responsible for all of these actions, and they're the one accountable, kind of like a sole proprietor and LLC. Like if you sue the LLC, you have all the protections of whatever copyright laws or laws under a corporation status rather than a single individual.
Yeah.
Something like that where they have a buffer.
Yeah.
But the thing with deploying superheroes in emergency situations, like they should absolutely still be held accountable, but like figure it out after the fact when it's not
Yeah.
time sensitive,
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like registering superhero names and stuff like that and identities, no, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah.
That's not gonna work.
I think that was like the number one reason why everybody did not side with Iron Man
Yeah.
in the comic book. It's the Sokovia Accords in the movie, I think, are way more of a justifiable concept.
I imagine people aren't thrilled with the words registration
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
in any
ugh.
capacity.
I feel like just no one wants the government to know exactly what they're doing with their life at all times. Like
If they know your weakness, then
just-
they could dispose of
yeah.
you at any time.
Yeah, like I mean, no one likes the idea of being watched over like a hawk or having every one of your moves be like analyzed under a microscope, and like that's a very human desire, and I don't think that superhumans should be left out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
vigilantes.
I think a big part of like in the movie Captain America's reason to not side with Iron Man is that at that point they're essentially just making them a Black Ops team
Yeah.
for the UN, which one he doesn't want because he just got out of Shield and
Yeah.
which was actually Hydra. Ooh. And obviously there's been problems with that in the past, specifically right with that organization that like that's how the Avengers were founded, under an organization, Shield, which then turned out to be corrupt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, I think one of his primary concerns was that what if a country who's not under the UN is in danger? Do you just say,
Oh,
okay,
well,
see you
sorry,
later, good luck
guys.
with that?
Yeah.
No,
Sorry, you
you-
don't have insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
gosh.
Sorry, you don't have insurance. I
Yeah.
can't save you. And it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like that's not the right way either. So
I mean, at that point, they're not even really getting like. I think that this act can work if like they are still able to be superheroes and fulfill their superhero-ly duties, but all that I think would need to be set in place is a system of checks and balances to make sure that the aftermath of these situations is handled properly. That's like what I would want.
you know what universes I think get this right off the bat is My Hero Academia and
Yes.
One Punch Man.
Yes.
If I know you guys aren't familiar with those two shows, but they in those shows, like the superheroes, there's an organization, not like Shield. It's basically an organization that pays the superheroes and like offers them insurance benefits and this and that.
Their
and like
salary.
yeah, they're salary superheroes, and their job is to go out and save people, and that's and they're working for this organization that basically funds superheroes, and it's like
Yeah.
So it's almost like The Incredibles a little bit,
Kind
or
of.
what The Incredibles were before, like when superheroes were in their prime.
it's like a less controversial Sokovia Accords.
Honestly, it's like more efficient too because like these groups like let them know about problems and situations that they need help with that the hero might not have actually known about
Yeah.
on their own accord.
True,
which
yeah.
is like,
Not every hero has a giant computer and hologram screen to see what's going wrong in the world.
yeah, yes, it works out really well. Like I think in that regard, because in those universes too, like I think specifically in One Punch Man, like they register as a hero.
Yeah.
Like that's who they're registered as. Like that's where the registration thing actually doesn't sound that bad to me, is if you're registered as your hero identity. Like you're not
Yeah.
registered as a real person, but you are registered as a hero by
Yeah.
like your superhero name, your abilities. Like that's what you're registered as. So therefore your secret identity is still, secret.
Yeah. They also
true.
classify you. So like S class, A class, B class, C class.
Yeah.
And you can get jobs, or not just jobs, but like you're
Gigs to save people.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
dispatched on missions. Now that's still sort of like the same deal, but like I feel like it would be a lot harder to find time-sensitive crimes serendipitously.
Yeah.
Like, it might be easier to just
Unless you're Tony Stark, who has all this crazy
Or
technology
Batman.
at your
Yeah,
hands.
or
Superman.
Superman who just
Yeah.
hears it. Which I'm very pro the idea of Superman just flying around the world, listening to everything. Like I'm down for like as a fan, knowing who Superman is, I'm down for him to like just like swoop in and save anybody, do what he wants because he's Superman.
Yeah.
But again, in a scenario where maybe I'm in the DCEU and I see Man of Steel events happen, and I'm like, kind of terrorism. maybe.
Oh man, when we rewatched, when we watched Man of Tomorrow, like
Yeah.
I was reminded of just how much collateral damage took place in Man of Steel. And I was like, this gives me anxiety. Like, oh
Yeah.
my god, Like,
There's that much of collateral. For the record, there's that much collateral damage in half the Marvel movies.
yeah,
You just
exactly.
It's just kind of spread out.
they
Yeah.
also don't
Talk about it.
linger on
Yeah.
it the way that
Yeah.
they did in Man of Steel. Man of Steel, they're like, this is what
Yeah.
would happen if these gods were fighting.
Yeah.
They
And-
kind of like gloss over it in Marvel every now and then, but they also show them saving people in Marvel, which I think was
That's the key.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
the Avengers is forgivable because you see Cap go into that like building and save the people from the Chitauri, and
Yeah.
they show the
Yeah.
interviews of the people afterwards, like, oh, they saved me.
yeah.
I do wonder though, like when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, like if let's say like the Avengers or whoever, the Justice League level the city, like who pays for that? Like what if they were like, all right, guys,
Taxpayers.
like yeah, like
this guy.
yeah, you're accountable for it, but now what?
Any final thoughts on this one?
I'm not an expert on government intelligence agencies, but I imagine an agency like SHIELD or whatever agency you want to be in charge of, being responsible for superheroes and their collateral damage operates something kind of like the CIA or the FBI.
Yeah.
Something like that. Where I don't know who's working for the CIA or the FBI. Like it's
Yeah.
not, as just a regular citizen here in this country, I don't know who it is and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So similar with superheroes, but they're still being held accountable somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that because I don't know. I don't work for the CIA or
Yeah.
the FBI, so I don't know how that system works. But
True.
it seems to be working so far to my knowledge or non-knowledge.
This is a topic that is exceedingly above our pay grade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To
that's
di-
exactly
yeah.
what I was thinking. Above our pay grade.
to just be like,
It's not my. I'm not
Yeah.
voting on the Sokovia
If we knew
Accords.
the answers to this, we wouldn't be sitting in these chairs right now.
Yeah,
We'd
none
be
of-
doing more important things.
none of us are
probably.
lawyers. We're just a couple of superhero fans.
Yeah.
So that being said, let's jump on to the next topic.
Do this.